Little introduction to the Warea Tract. You're standing at the border between the southeast and northeast units. We have 120 acres here. We have 40 acres to the south. We're standing in 40 acres, and then to the west, we have another 40-acre plot, and they're divided by roads on the interior. This property was purchased in 1998 specifically for the preservation of Warea plexifolia, which is an annual herb that is one of 2 federally endangered species that are annuals on the Lake Wales Ridge. And so you are standing, and if everybody turns and faces south, you're standing on a side slope of the Lake Wales Ridge. So if you can imagine this being a mountain range, if you look that direction to the west, you look up to the top of the ridge, or the continental divide of Florida, and looking down this way, you look to the eastern slope of the Lake Wales Ridge, and the Lake Wales Ridge runs north and south. And the Lake Wales Ridge is a relic dune system from when this was an island surrounded by water. So the coast would have been about 5 miles from here. All right? And then that direction, it would have been just about 5, maybe 8 miles away from us over there. The Lake Wales Ridge is 110 miles long. Depending upon whose definition you use, and if you look at some of the endemic species that occur, it goes a little bit farther north. So Warea plexifolia was thought to be at its northern terminus at about Sugarloaf Mountain, and it's in Leesburg at Lake Griffin State Park, and then there's a population of it in Marion County. So it was considered to be a Lake Wales Ridge endemic, and then if you go by the current definition of Lake Wales Ridge, it stops before Warea stops. So Warea doesn't follow the rules. It goes on up into Marion County. There are 3 different fire histories here corresponding with the 3 different management units. So this unit has had 2 fires since 1998. The northwest unit has had 3, and the southeast unit has had none. So that landscape back there that you see is what happens when xeric pine upland, longleaf pine savanna, gets no fire for greater than 30 years. So we have no idea when the last fire was that occurred on this property. We know that I have some aerial photographs in the truck that I pulled up last night that I brought for Juliet and Jackie. We know that the largest amount of land conversion occurred in the late 50s. So starting at about 1950, we start to see the orange groves coming in from the west. And by 57, this island is pretty much what's left. So to the west of us, all that was converted between 1952 and 57, and then it accelerated past here, and we get this L-shaped island of habitat. It's about 10,000 acres around us that converted in about 3 or 4 years. So most of that probably happened in a year, because most of it was all one landowner that had it. These are big blocks of former citrus, for those of you who are not from around here. Growing up here, this was hundreds of thousands of acres of citrus orchards from Leesburg to Lake Wales. And they all died out in the freezes of the mid-1980s. And that ushered in one of 2 things: pine plantations with slash pine, or McMansion plantations. And so that's pretty much what we got. We have 9 listed species, endangered species here of plants. It's the only place on the planet.
Are. All those little dots. Have you got natal on here? No.
It's the only place on the planet where all 9 of those species occur together. So you can't go somewhere else and find the 9 unless it's an introduced population, which then we don't count that because that's not a natural population. That's going to make Jackie mad. But so just to the north of us is Scrub Point Preserve, which is a Lake County Water Authority preserve. They have some plants. They don't have all the plants. So they didn't have Warea until a Warea introduction project was done there. I don't think they have. I think they don't have prunus. There's something else they don't have. We have 9. They have 6 or 7. So that's the difference between here and there. To the southeast of us, about 2.5, 3 miles, is a Schofield sandhill. It's about 100 acres. And that is missing plants as well. So this is kind of the epicenter. This was a famous botanical site prior to it being purchased It was known as the Flat Lake site, and botanists traveled from all over to come here and look at the flora here because it's so different than some of the other sand hills that we run into. As Jackie was showing on the map, the endangered species are all over. And one of the reasons why we're standing in here is there are no endangered species here. And so this is a lesson on fire exclusion, closed canopy, and leaf litter. So if you look around where we're standing, you see a lot of leaves on the ground. You see a pretty closed canopy above your head. And you should notice something else about it here. It's missing something that we should have in a longleaf pine savanna. Anybody recognize what we're missing?
Grasses.
We're missing some grasses, yep. I was talking about a bigger feature. Probably in the name that I just said. Longleaf pine. Yeah, there's no longleaf pine in this little section. This section hasn't burned. It won't carry fire. So we have to manipulate this to get fire in here. And one of the ways that you manipulate this is you come in here and you selectively take out some of these oaks to let sunlight come in, to let the leaf litter go away and the grasses to start coming in. And then fire will carry through here and we'll start to get a handle on putting these oaks back into their niche of where they should be. Okay? When you look at the ground, you see that there's not a lush ground cover, and there's some things missing here as well. So our endangered species are missing, like Polygala lutoni is one of our ubiquitous all over the northern 80 acres of this preserve. We've got more Polygala here than, you'll see more Polygala here than just about anybody else on the planet today. You will see more Warea amplexifolia than exists anywhere else on the planet.
We just did a count. What was the second day?
There's just about 10,000 individuals of Warea amplexifolia. It's the biggest population in the world. It's the biggest population we've ever had here. Historically, the largest population we ever had was 2,000, and this year we had 10,000. So it was a significant increase in population numbers.
Are they still blooming?
Yeah.
Good, we'll see some.
Yep, we'll make sure we see some today. Now, if you look to the north, you can see where the fire was. So let's walk up there, and then what we're going to do, once I kind of get this introduction done, we're going to scientifically quantify that. We're going to look at this from the standpoint of how we measure what is quote-unquote good and what is quote-unquote bad. I don't like using good and bad, but that's an easy way to describe what we're going to do today, okay? So let's walk up here and let's look at the difference, the transition between where fire was and where it's not.